it's more sour. Yeah. So you try it is dark roast. So you can test sunflowers smells or it tastes very smoothly. Yeah.
Oh, you sound like an expert talking about coffee. Yeah, okay. But they're both Arabica coffee beans.
Yeah.
Okay.
They both of Arabica beans.
Which is good because your research says people like Arabica beans. Yeah. I wonder, did you find that a lot of people knew about the different types of coffee beans? So they chose Arabica most, but were there a lot of people that chose the other one? Robusta, and what about the other ones? Was there other that you put it in the server? Ethiopian ones, yeah. And those ones are not so popular. But people still chose those ones. They also take on that. So then that means that there's potential to expand the type of coffee beans for what's it called? For balance, for the balanced tea bag. Yeah. So I think one of my feedback is, although it's good that we find the most important one, but it's also important to look at how it performs with the other kinds of beans as well. Because Australia, coffee drinking is quite complex, right? A lot of people drink a lot of coffee in Australia. So it's important to consider as well what other kinds of flavors we can provide. Because Australia is not like, oh, I only know Arabica, so I will just drink Arabica. So I think it would be an important recommendation to add in to say that, well, although Arabica is number one, it could be because a lot of people don't know any other beans, but in reality, Australian coffee culture is actually quite complex. But you can say that Arabica is a starting point. When I first want to introduce us to go Arabica because everyone can drink it, and then we slowly introduce new products. I have another question. This takes 4 minutes to brew. So once you put it into the water, you have to wait 4 minutes. The convenience side of things is actually a bit lower compared to powder coffee, right? So that's something to count for. Of course, this is not powder coffee, it's better than powder coffee, but it is something to kind of, how to say, when you promote it, it's almost like, it's 4 minutes, which takes 3 minutes longer than a normal powder coffee, but it's worth it. Yeah. So I think what in terms of your recommendations as an improvement after the recommendations, it's almost like I can see that your recommendations, a lot of it was what you found, and those are the key findings. But the research project is not about not just about what your survey says. It's about what can the company do with that information. So rather than just say, oh, we found that people like Arabica, what does that mean for the company? And that's a little bit more, arguably it's more important than your findings alone, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's just something to take on board. I know it's it's your first time doing a research project and you did really well, but when we move forward and once you graduate and you work in a company and you do the research there, always talk about, so what after? Okay. One more point. One more point. Willingness to pay. That amount is in Taiwan dollars, or Australian dollars, or US dollars. US dollars. So someone said $50. Really? For one packet?
I would be willing to bet that they thought it was NTD.
I think so.
That's impossible. I mean, did you guys survey Elon Musk? He might be willing to pay $50 for a copy, but man, I'm pretty sure they thought it was NTD because if either you guys reached out to the respondent, right, and then they know that they're in Taiwan, so they probably didn't read it very carefully, and they just put 50 NT as in like
Yeah.
$2, $2 US, you know.
Yeah, which makes a bit more
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
sense.
Yeah.
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 But do you guys know what we're saying? Yeah. All right. Cool.
So it's okay because it's a research project, so you know these kinds of things happen. But I think when you're out there doing research for a company, you have to be quite careful with drawing conclusions from there. Because if I see $50 for one packet of that, it's like no, we're not Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But if it's 50 Taiwan dollars, then yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah. So I think just something to be careful about. I think one thing that we are, as people who, when we're doing analysis, we are always very tempted to go with, what does the number say? And so we just follow the numbers. But often you also have to look at the numbers and say, is it really true? Because sometimes numbers can lie. A lot of times, if you say for example, say social media, digital marketing, right? You guys all have studied digital marketing, and we are saying that, oh, how do we know if people like our company, right? And then you go for social, and then you look at the social media post and how many likes. Do you think likes actually indicate whether or not people like the company? It could be that it, you know, it could be that they like the video or they like the picture. They don't necessarily like the company, or it could be that some people are just, you know, they just go through their social media and just get tap the whole time. So we have to be skeptical about numbers as well. So we look at the numbers. 50块没有可能 So you have to be a little bit more critical about the numbers. Yeah. What's the last one? So when you survey people, you survey Australians in Taiwan as well as Australians in Australia as well. One other thing to consider is that somebody in a different country usually adjusts their preferences. So if I am in Australia, because we have a lot of cafes and you know the coffee culture here is really strong, my expectations of coffee is really high. So if I go to a cafe and I drink a coffee there, this is not good. Like I never drink coffee from Curtin. It's not good, right? So when I go out in Australia, my expectations for coffee is very high. But when I go to a different country, say I go back to Malaysia or I go to you know Singapore, my expectation drops as well. So preferences will be a little bit different. Which so my point is that if you are surveying people, you need to also account for where they are at that point in time. So your Australians in Australia and your Australians in Taiwan should be treated almost like separate groups of people.
Were you gonna say something?
You are now.
可以讲中文。
你先讲中文吗？
就是我们后面其实还有其他补充，但是那是被我们隐藏掉的。我们没有就想说，如果之后真的有时间的话，可以给大家看一下。我看一下。我隐藏掉了。
Oh, that's so much data. Yeah.
Do you know which
There you
one?
go.